Julia and I are interviewing Loic about his Pluto opposition Mars transit, which he had when he was 17 years old in 2007. And his Mars is in Gemini. Very interesting point because he talks a lot about his education, specifically in the 29th degree of Gemini, which is joy of a fresh start. And you'll see how surprisingly relevant that description is of that Sabian symbol. So I'll read from my book, Julia's and my book about Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, which is coming out later. Pluto, opposition Mars. Our evolutionary process offers the necessary tension to bring greater awareness of the expression of self assertion. This can be a challenging time in which our assertiveness, defensiveness, and passions experience significant upheaval. Our energy levels are likely heightened, yet deeply volatile. We respond with urgency and insurmountable power to the slightest feeling of opposition. This energetic potency must be navigated with great care. We must strive not to impose our will or boundless passions on others, ruthlessly dominating situations or people without regard for their feelings, and abusing the surge of power we now feel. So let's hear from Loic now, and you'll notice how extraordinarily relevant that text is to his life story.
It's in 2007 that I actually realized that I was not nourished by the education system in Guadeloupe. So the things that comes to my mind in 2007 was the completely confusion and need of transformation of the way in which I started to educate myself, because it was not aligned with my character or aligned with my personality, the way that I'm getting information. Or so that's what I would start with.
Um, did you have any friction?
Friction is a good word. I would say almost thinking that we are in two different planets. I think they didn't know how to deal with me. Just don't know how to deal with this kid. But in a sense that um I was just different. I was not the one asking questions a lot. I was not really asking questions. I was quiet a lot, but at the same time, um yeah, I felt like an alien. In my last year, that was that type of feeling. And it's funny because it wasn't only my this educators from a very um politi the educational system, but my educators can also be my parents at that time. Um and I was really rebellious in my relationship with my dad, because that's when I was like, oh, I need to step out, I need to leave. And he didn't want me to do that. It was like, you can't do this. Like, how are you going to take care of yourself? Like, you just you're 17 years old, and you going where? You yeah, so my dad conflict we had a very conflictual, almost conflictual relationship, not in the sense of words, but just in thinking. Um, and my mom was more supportive of my discomfort at that time. And she was like, you know what? Obviously, you don't, there is there is a disconnect between your education here and who you are. So yeah, I support you, go. So I needed to get that last year, that degree, but somewhere else. So she was like, wherever you want to go, I mean, at least you are going to finish your high school journey. So that's what I did, and she was supportive of that. and I didn't went to school until my last year of school in France until October or November 2017. I was 2 months late. I remember that vividly because people, when I came to the class for the first time in France, they looked at me like, what the fuck this guy is doing here? Like, it's just that was traumatic actually. My experience arriving at the class that I was in a European class, meaning that the students that came to that was part of that class knew each other since they were 11 years old. So they were like a new person from where? From so that was an experience. I was definitely the odd lad. And there was this person, not only not really from France. I mean, I am from France, but I'm Guadeloupean, so the culture. I was coming with those my culture, my accent. I was coming with all of that to an environment that was completely oblivious to that, even though the particularity of being in that class is that those were bilingual students, so they were having um um subjects in English and in French. They were learning history in English. They were also learning history in French. So they were always they had that bilingualism attached to that particular class.
And you, did you have English?
Well, that's when I learned, really. That was the first time I learned English. That was in that class because I was not even thinking of English like that. But those guys were going to England each year, and this year was Plymouth, but they were going each year somewhere in England because that was part of the curriculum. So so yeah, so that was my last year. That was 2007 and 2008.
Do you know the Sabian symbol of your Mars?
The the first mockingbird, the first mockingbird in spring.
The joy of a fresh start. So
Mm.
did you feel that when you got to all of this difficult place, you nevertheless were having a joyful new start? Did you feel that?
Yeah, that was fresh. That was, and especially, I mean, that was fresh in every sense of the word fresh. Fresh apartment or fresh city. That was the first time me being in Lyon because that's where I got my high school degree. I wasn't in Paris then, I was in Lyon. So that was fresh city, apartment, fresh start by myself, new school, new environment, new people. So yeah, fresh everything.
Perfect. Well, that's your Pluto opposition Mars experience. I think it could not be clearer,
Yeah.
you know.
So did it feel empowering then in the end?
Um, challenging, empowering at the end, yes. Um, but definitely challenging because I was that was a quote unquote culture shock, but not in an aspect that, oh, you French. It's just completely different type of people that I was surrounded with, whether it's even intellectual speaking, the intellectual capacities, because they were already have this being the bilingual aspect to them that was really new for me.
Mm.
Um, uh, yeah, so empowering in many ways, challenging, but it was pushing me towards, okay, the push a little bit more. Because I
Mm.
think that what happened in when I was in Guadeloupe is just um not stimulating enough. And not only not stimulating enough, I felt too much of the uh the education there was not enriching me. It was not stimulating. Even the way that they were teaching was not stimulating. And it was too diluted from the culture of Guadeloupe for me. It was not, there is no authenticity in the way that they were teaching. And I felt like even though I was not able to voice that, that was the experience. It was fake, you know. I was not learning. If it was learning mechanically, like getting information in your mind, okay, that's one thing, but I was not good at that, to be honest. You needed to have substance. Okay, what am I hearing this for? Why is it going to be useful in my life? Like, that was not the case, you know. So I was not good at that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's interesting because Gemini likes to make connections, and you were struggling with that, right? The connection between information and ideas. And also, you mentioned bilingualism quite a lot, which I also find fascinating because Gemini is about two sides, right? So, two things speaking
Mm,
at the same time. So, that's fascinating, symbolically speaking.
yeah, yeah, that was the only, yeah, that class was about that. Like the teachers were just very, it was not easy because the level was really hard. Um, but I survived it. And then,
Well,
yeah,
what better than survived? I mean, you've evolved to quite an advanced level of consciousness at a young age.
yeah,
You know, that's the appetite you have. You want to do as much as you can, so you got to get going. And you started a very brave journey at the age of 17 against your dad's wishes. Good Pluto Mars stuff, you know.